Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the second broadcast of Getting to Hired here on LinkedIn Live. Happy Friday to everybody. Today is Friday, the 15th of November, 2019. And very excited to be coming to you here on the live stream on LinkedIn, the rebroadcast on YouTube, but you can find it all at Getting2Hired. Hi, my name is Tony Morrow, and this is the program, the video series that's helping you, the military member, successfully transition from your military career to your new successful civilian one. And in today's episode, I want to talk about, first of all, just, happy Friday, and we're getting ready to roll into the weekend. But I wanted to take a minute to do two things. One, to be able to talk about the role of culture and how important it is in the military and the change that we face when we leave our uniform behind and transition to civilian life, but also the advantage that culture that we have with us can bring to your organization. And then some final thoughts at the very end. So let's start off with that theme, culture shock. And as a military member, if we talk about military culture, we talk about perhaps veteran culture, we talk about the culture of the military, and we, as veterans, we instinctively know that. If you're currently serving, you know that as well. And perhaps if you have no experience with the military and you hear us talk about that and the value of that culture, you might scratch your head and not quite understand it. And you might legitimately ask the question, what is military culture and why is that valuable? Why is that useful? Why should I care? And of course, if you have ever been part of that culture, you probably look at the person who might be saying that to you and be a little dumbfounded. But for that audience, for those of you who have no military experience or exposure, think of it this way. For many hundreds of years, we have had military organizations established to be able to fight and defend the country that you live in or that you served for, and in order to be able to do that job effectively, in order to be able to exercise the use of force in dangerous, stressful, and demanding circumstances, you need to be able to have a common understanding amongst everybody that is working in that environment, one that allows for when demands are made or requests are asked that things get done quickly and not a lot of questioning occurs. Speed of execution is very important in a military environment, and that's something. The discipline that comes with that is something that has been grown and cultured in military institutions. So whether you're Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, if you're in the U.S., you have not only the overall overarching military culture of your country and your service, but also the specific service that you served in: Army, Navy, Air Force, or the Marines. And even goes down to the unit level. Certain units have team cultures and so on that are unique to those individual teams or units, and that can perpetuate and bring things along with it as well. But overall, the military culture is one that brings overarchingly this powerful sense of professionalism, energy, drive, and ability to execute, get things done in not perfect circumstances. And that's certainly not unique to the military. There are many other organizations that have that, but the military specifically has, along with that, the history and the heritage of everything that comes with it. And speaking from my own naval background, the Royal Canadian Navy, the Navy in which I served, it pulls its heritage from the Royal Navy of England, and the Royal Navy has a long and storied history of service and culture when it comes to the routine and the happenings of life at sea, and that whole kind of bubble is its own thing. Whether it's the portion of your daily routine referring to the morning and the afternoon, or the AM and the PM as the forenoon and the afternoon, talking about soup, and uh, and and the whole culture that comes, or the symbology that comes with it, the executive curl that in Canada we didn't have for a long time and recently has been given back. The change of like the iconography of your rank, the fact that you wear that on your shoulder or on your uniform, it's highly visible for others to see. The status, the prestige, the position that comes with the various, whether it be the rank that you hold, the position that you are filling, or the theaters in which you've been employed or operated. There's a storied history and prestige that comes with that. If the medals that you may wear, as documenting your service and experience. There's, and even recently having had Remembrance Day here in Canada and Veterans Day in the United States, the acknowledgement of the service and the unique experience that is, the unique demand that is on its members, and all that goes with that service mentality, the fact that you are making a commitment to your country, to a greater organization, a greater good, and that you're willing to sacrifice or put yourself in harm's way to be able to accomplish that goal. That's a very significant piece, especially in a world today where there is a lot of self-service out there, a lot of individual actors who may be doing what they do for purely selfish reasons, as opposed to doing what they do in service of the greater good, whether that be your community, your country, or your organization. And let's dial in on that piece for a second. The question that often comes up when it comes to military veterans and the military, when you're a private organization or you're looking to see the value in bringing veterans into your organization, why would that military culture, that piece, why would that be important to me? How would that bring value to my organization? And there's many examples of organizations who do recognize this and bring it in, and we'll touch on those in a second, but fundamentally, there is we'll call it three aspects. One is the commitment to the greater good, the commitment to the organization, the commitment to those other than self. You take on a role and you're willing to do all that is required, all that is necessary to be able to accomplish the objectives of that particular role, potentially by sacrificing aspects of your own life existence and so on. You might face, you intentionally put yourself in hardship's way, perhaps, to be able to reach those organizational goals. So that sense of sacrifice, that sense of service to the greater organizational good. Two is the efficacy of that individual, that ability to come into perhaps unideal circumstances, not having all the information and not being perhaps a full expert in that particular field, but be able to hit the ground running, pick things up as they go, use them or learn them quickly and apply them easily to great efficacy. We have this saying in the military, adapt and overcome, and that is really a mentality that drives a lot of what we do. That you come up against hardships, challenges, obstacles, and that you will encounter that, and that you will find a way to overcome that obstacle, whether it's, the classic kids song, can't go over it, can't go under it, can't go around it. What do you do? And so we find a way. We are creative problem solvers as a veteran, in the veteran community, as military members. You're able to come across things that you may not have experienced before, circumstances that are not ideal, and yet are able to find a way to be able to get the thing done, whatever that objective may be for the organization. And lastly, I mentioned it before, but the professionalism and the respect in which we conduct ourselves. In the first broadcast, I mentioned that's my dog barking away. Of course, he's barking like crazy. Just 1 second. So as I say, sorry, just that my dog was barking there and sorting that out. Yeah, the last piece there being that you're able to overcome these obstacles and move forward and get things done in that way, that professional way that perhaps others may not necessarily bring to the table, whether that's the polish on your shoes, the press in your uniform, the way that you conduct yourself. These are the things, that qualities that are inherent or baked into that military member that bring into, or the veteran that bring that value to your organization. So yeah, that's the 1, 2, 3 of what a veteran brings to you as your organization. And as you could tell, I have a guest that's just arrived, so I'm going to have to go offline here in a second. But lastly, I'll touch on the thing about the aspect about culture and culture shock. So in the military environment, you come into you experience your career in an environment, and it starts from basic training, whereby you learn the rank structure, you learn your place in it, you learn the style in which we communicate. I'm even doing it now with the pointed hands, and so on. And we conduct ourselves in such a way, and build an organization around this clarity of communication, this efficacy of instruction and direction, and it is such that it's designed obviously with a very distinct purpose in mind, but it's a very, regardless of your organization, whether you work for an industrial company, let's say car company, you work for Ford or Chrysler, or you work for Apple or Microsoft. Every organization has its own culture baked in, and there's an onboarding process, a process by which you integrate yourself into that organization, and you adopt perhaps some of their cultural traits. In the military, that's a very formalized process, and basic training and trades training and progressing through your career to being fully qualified in your trade, that whole process, that tiered process does that throughout. And as you take on different roles in the organization, move up the ladder, so to speak, you're adopting different cultural positions within that organization. Those represented by usually the rank on your shoulder, and the positions that you hold in various military units. Like when someone will talk about the RSM, the regimental sergeant major, there's an awe aspect to that position. The coxswain on a ship, the XO, the captain. I mean, captains at sea I talked about the Royal Navy, like in the old days, the captain was God, so to speak. They had ultimate authority over everybody under their command. While at sea, they were an island state unto themselves, and the dictator, not the dictator, but the commander of one, which was the captain. And so there are cultural heritages, there are ways of behaving, styles of communication, and this whole bubble of culture that exists around the military. We as veterans, we adopt this. Obviously, we have to in order to be able to be successful in a military organization. And depending on how long you've been in, 4 years, 10 years, 15, 30, however long, you've adopted that style of communication, that way of thinking. And when you leave the military and you put your uniform aside and you reintegrate into the civilian space, dealing with that transition, leaving those symbols of your prestige, your the respect that you were given, those ranks on your shoulder, those positions that you held, that acknowledgement, that respect, that disappears in many ways. And when you transitioned into civilian life, you're starting new. You're dealing with a new vocabulary, new sets of terminology, new ways of thinking, and new perspectives on how people see you, new styles of communication. The knife hand no longer works necessarily. And you need to learn different ways to be able to navigate that situation. So from us as a military member, that culture shock is significant, and recognizing that and dealing with that as part of your process is important. That being said, a lot of those characteristics that you bring from that military culture, as I mentioned before, like those are so valuable and can be so have such a positive influence on the organization that you may end up working for. The return on investment of the organization investing in you to bring you into the organization, give you a position, and train you, onboard you for their purposes. The return on investment for the organization, for you, the veteran, is substantial. But you as the veteran need to be cognizant and aware of that is happening for you, that process, that transition. Very, very important to deal with. And some struggle with it, but over the course of watching Getting to Hired and the conversation that we're going to have over the next days and weeks and years to come, we'll be able to navigate that as one piece of the many conversations that we're going to have. So lastly, on the concept of the conversation, the dialogue that we're going to have on this channel, on this live stream here on LinkedIn, and on the various platforms that the Getting to Hired exists on, on YouTube at Getting2Hired, for example, is I need your help to be able to understand the challenges that you're going through. I will always be able to relate my own personal experience, but in order to be able to help you with the challenges you're dealing with, I need to hear from you. So here's my ask. My ask is that if you're watching this and if you're representing an organization, put your comments below as far as where you see the value of a veteran, or is that a question you're still asking, or what are the concerns that you have when it comes to a military veteran resume that comes across the HR desk? What are the concerns that come to mind when you're dealing with a veteran? And if you're a veteran and you're dealing with your career transition now, either you're in uniform and you're coming up to it, what are the things that are you worried about? What are you concerned about? What ways are you planning on dealing with that as you cross that threshold into civilian life? And if you are just recently going through that, have gone through it, are on the other side of it, what's your experience? How are you dealing with it? Share with us your success stories, your challenges. And I want to hear about the questions that you may have right now today as to, how do you move this ball forward? How do you get that next job, move through your next career? How do you see the employment world after your military career? Are you struggling with understanding how it works, or even just how to get a job, or, this relationship that you're having on LinkedIn? How are you seeing that? What questions do you have? What concerns are coming up? I want to hear from you. Because without those questions, without those comments, this dialogue all falls apart. And we're not able to really get to the root of the problem, root of the challenges, root of the benefits that this platform can really, really give you. So with that said, thank you very much for your time. If you are joined us on the live stream, you'll be able to catch this as it rebroadcasts on LinkedIn over the next 24 hours or so. And if you are catching it on the tail end and can't find it on LinkedIn, then please feel free to head over to YouTube at Getting2Hired, and you'll be able to see that coming up in the next couple days as it's posted. Thank you very much for joining me today on Getting to Hired. My name's Tony Morrow. Thank you very much.